Well, first of all, I want to welcome everyone here to this panel. My name is Seán and Lapaíoighir. Pleased to meet you. And welcome to Colour Me Surprised. So, when we think about colour in itself, all of us are attracted in some way to colour. It speaks to us in different ways. You don't even have to be an artist to appreciate colour. You can take a walk outside and you see maybe a beautiful sunset or sunrise, or maybe it's nighttime and you look up at the night sky and you see a beautiful moonlit night, and maybe it's just the glimmer, the silvery reflection that you see. Maybe it's on snow or something. But all of us in some way or another are affected by colour. And why is that? And how can you use colour when you're trying to design an OC or a Sona? How can you find colours that both reflect mood, reflect personality, and just find colours that go well together? In this panel, you're going to be able to learn that. So first off, let's start off with a basics of colour. Most of us, when we were younger, we remember learning your basic primary colors. So you'd have red, blue, yellow, your basic primary colors. From there, of course, you have your secondaries where you mix the two, so you get your orange, purple, and green. From there, things get a little bit more complicated. You can mix various different amounts of each to get various different combinations of colors somewhere in between. And so you end up usually with something like this. So this here is what's referred to as a color wheel. So if you notice here, you have your primary colors still there. You have your red, you have your blue, and you have your yellow. You have your secondary colors, your green, purple, and orange, but you have all of the in-between colors, so like your red oranges, your blue purples, teals, things like that. Now, why is this a handy tool to have? Well, let's say, for example, you're wanting to find a color that could coordinate. Coordinating colors. So there's basically 3 different types of main color schemes that you can go with. There's a lot more, of course, but we're just going to keep this very basic here. So let's say that you want to go for something more natural feeling, or you don't really like a whole lot of really loud, bold colors for your Sona, for your artwork, or maybe it's for a fursuit, or maybe it's even for photography too. The same principles apply. But you would have what you'd call a monochromatic scheme. And what is monochrome? Well, let's break it down. Mono meaning one, chroma referring to different color, so one color. So let's say here on the color wheel here, you're just looking, and let's say you pick blue. No bias at all. But let's just say that you pick with blue. So then I let's say I want to go with a blue here. But now, if I'm all one color, is that really interesting? Maybe, depends. But that's where you have what are referred to as tints and shades come in. So, over here, if you look here, this is a similar color wheel, right? But you notice here there's a difference. You have what I referred to as shades on the outside. Shade refers to when you're adding black or brown to darken a color. Usually black, though. So then when you look at the pure color itself, that's often referred to as a hue. And that's usually your most saturated, your brightest color that you can see. Now, as you add white to a hue, you get what's called a tint. So, learning how to work with different hues and tints, that can add some variety. So let's say now we go back to that blue over here, and we want to pick out a tint of that blue. So what do? If you're working with traditional mediums, you can add white. Like if you're working with a paintbrush, you just mix a little bit of white into your hue, your color that you've chosen, and then just swirl it until it's about, you know, the tint or the lightness of that blue that you want. And then let's say that you want to go for a darker blue, right? Like maybe a navy, you know. So then you would add a bit of black to that, and that's going to shade it. So now we started with one color, right? Just blue, just the hue blue. But now we've got a dark blue, a baby blue, and then just a, you know, normal, like a royal blue, right? So these right here then, if we take those colors, we're going to take them all here, and we're going to put them right here. Now you have a color palette. You have something that is still all one hue. It's monochromatic, right? But this is a way that you can use one color that you like, but split it into three. And this is really great if you, like I said, feel more tendency towards not a whole lot of like really bold contrast in that, but you like more neutral, soft colors, variants on the same, then you might like a monochromatic scheme for that. And that can go whether it's for designing a character, for a persona, for maybe even background. Like if you want it to feel a bit more toned down, you could work with a lot of your tints, shades to kind of wash down the feel. And that, as we'll get into later, can also affect the overall mood that you're wanting to convey or personality. Now, let's take a look at another type of complementary color scheme. Incidentally, that's its own, but we'll get to that in a second. So your second type of color scheme that you could go with, I've heard it referred to in a couple of different ways. Easiest way to think of it is a neighboring color. I can't remember the other term off the top of my head. It starts with an A. If any of you do remember that, you can leave a comment there. But anyway, when we go back to the color wheel here, now, let's say that we're still dealing with that blue, right? But now, let's say, I don't want everything to be all just blue. I want another color, but what goes well with blue? Well, when you look on the color wheel here, what are the colors to the left and to the right? You see there, you've got purple on the one side there, and then you've got green on the other. Now, purple and green are neighboring colors of blue. Now, you can still do different shades and tints of those colors, but why would a neighboring color palette be used? Let's say you want something that's just a little bit different, but you don't want to, go way into bold, loud colors either, but you don't want to be just everything all one color either. Then a neighboring color palette might be just what you need. And where could you turn to for inspiration if you're not sure about like what grabs your attention? Well, when you go for maybe you're out for a walk, or you're looking outside your window and you see maybe you have a garden, or you tend to gravitate towards certain colors, maybe like your favorite flowers or trees or photos, places that you've been. What is it about those areas that grabs your attention? So It's usually the color, isn't it? So take a look at the world around you for inspiration. Normally, you're going to find a lot of these colors right next to each other. So, for example, you have the trees, and then you have the sky as a background, right? Or maybe it's a maybe it's an animal that you have. You have look at the different color schemes that are there, like on birds. Maybe it's a maybe even insects as well. If you like bugs, look at the different colors that are there for inspiration and see what you see around you in the world. So, a neighboring color palette. So let's say if you went with those, what would that look like? Well, let's grab a green, and we'll keep that blue. And so now we can choose different shades or tints. We're going to grab those. We're going to put them right over here. Now we have our blue, and let's just say that we choose that as our main color. Now we have the options here. We can do a accent, like for your markings and that. We can do that in a purple, or we could do it in a green. Now, does that mean that you have to go for just one shade of green? Not necessarily. You could go with like a blue-green, like a teal, like on my markings here. Or you could go with maybe something that's more towards the purple side. And you could go really any number of different directions. Now, let's say here, when would you know to use a shade or a tint? Let's say if you want the color to feel soft, if you want it to feel light, maybe even a little bit worn, that would be an indication of when you could use a tint to lighten a color. Or in some cases, you could use a brown like sepia. So in those cases, if you were to like take a light blue, for example, you can use that as a way to soften that color. Whereas if you want it to feel a bit more, maybe it's a different time of day, maybe it's darker, or maybe it's creating a more sullen, more somber mood, you could use a lot of your shaded colors there to indicate a bit more dark, a bit more, a little bit more, maybe it could be reflecting sadness there, or it could even just be reflecting the time of day as well. Now, you don't want to always just shade or color with black when you're doing shadows. That's its own thing there, but we're just talking here about color and how to convey like different moods, which we'll get into that a little bit later. So then that would be your neighboring color palette, and how to know when to use what colors, and when to use a shade or when to use a tint. Now, our third way that you can look at for finding colors that will go well together is called a complementary color scheme. And what does that look like? Well, let's go back here to our color wheel. And there it is. Now, if you notice here, you have, let's say, let's keep with blue, for example. If you look at blue, now go the opposite side of the color wheel. What color do you see there? You see an orange usually, right? So blue and orange are on opposite sides of the color wheel, just like how you have red and green. You have yellow and purple. Those are referred to as complementary colors. But why complementary? Well, complementary means that they complete each other, or they stand out the strongest next to each other. Just like how, like if you think about how you have peanut butter and jelly, or maybe you have cheesecake and cherry, if you like that. Or like basically you have two things that when you put them together, they make something amazing, but they're usually opposites of each other at times. So that's how you look at it with color here. So when would you use a complementary color scheme? Let's say you really like contrasts. You like really bold, loud colors. Good example. Have you ever seen a macaw, a parrot? Look at the colors on their feathers. You have your reds, your greens, your blues and yellows. Look at other birds as well. The birds are famous for having contrasting colors. Now, when you want to use that, you can still use the same principles of like using either a tint or a shade of that same color to get your same effect. So, for example, when would you use a complementary color scheme as well, like when you're designing your Sona? Let's say that you see a bandana that's there, and it's like, oh, this looks amazing. And like, for example, for me, I found one that was like an orange that has a bit of a plaid pattern to it. And so it's like, oh, orange, blue, complement. Now, a rule of thumb when you're working with complementary colors, especially when it comes to accents, so let's say it's something that you want the eye to be drawn to, use it in a minimal way, and you'll have your desired effect. So, for example, if you think about it, you can use like a decorator's rule of thumb, 60-30-10. 60% your main color, 30% a coordinating color, and 10% your accent. So, in other words, you just want to use that minimally. Otherwise, it can be really, really loud. But if you're going for a sparkle dog, then that's its own thing too. Sparkle dogs can be very, very well done too. So those are your basics when it comes to color coordination. And again, you can always look to the world around you for inspiration. Like here's an example. How many of you enjoy seeing photos of the beach? You ever seen your really soft aqua on the water, and then maybe it's at a sunset or getting close to that, and then you see those cotton candy clouds, right? You have your pinks and then your blues, and it's just gorgeous, isn't it? So when you're looking at that, you can see why they stand out so strongly next to each other. But now you can still do various tints or shades of any of those colors. A good rule of thumb is, let's say if you're going for a more muted feel, keep everything muted. So like if you pick, let's say, like a soft blue, and you want all of your other colors to be soft, well, make sure that you all tint them to about the same level. So if you're working, let's say, with digital media, when you're looking at your color wheel, or in some cases it's like a square with like a little slider, or you can enter in the hex values, however you choose to go about that, just make sure that you keep your tint about the same across the board as you're looking across them as you pick your different coordinating colors, and then it'll all mesh together. Same thing if you're going with more shaded colors, or if you want something a bit more washed out, you can do different tones of them. Tone referring to a grayed out color. So that would be some of your basics. Now, how can color affect our mood? That is a very good question. Like, have you ever heard the term untickled pink, or maybe someone describes themselves as feeling blue. Perhaps maybe they're green with jealousy, or green because they're sick, or something like that. But we tend to use color and associate that with moods, right? So color also can be used to create or affect the mood. Take for an example. We'll go through here each of these colors, and I'll ask you what you think your general mood is when you see this color, and we'll show here an example of that color. And I want you to let me know in the comments here, how do you feel when you see that particular color? So let's, for example, start with blue. So if you look here and see a blue sky, or maybe it's a blue ocean, how do you feel when you see the color blue? Usually kind of more of a relaxed feeling, right? What about the color purple? It could be a red purple, it could be a blue purple. Look at these flowers here. How does that make you feel? Or maybe it's something more soft, like that. Or like grapes, or, you know, anything that has that color. So colors like that. And then also, if we look at green, look at the trees here, like a pine forest or redwoods. Maybe it's palm trees, or maybe it's an open meadow. When you see these colors, how do they make you feel? Tend to make you feel a little bit more chill, a little bit more relaxed, right? So these are often termed cool colors. So cool colors, because of how they sit on the eye, they tend to help relax. Now, if we look at something else here, let's look at this field of sunflowers. Look at the daffodil there. When you see yellow, how does it tend to make you feel? Usually really bright, cheery. Maybe some of you are smiling a little bit right now, right? You just can't help it. It's a natural reaction there when you see colors like that. That they're very just bright, cheery. They make you feel good. It's kind of energizing. What about this sunset here? Look at the oranges in the sky. What about this color here? Look at the rose and the tulips. Red is a very, very powerful color. It's often used to create strong emotion. Hence a reason why you'll usually see red on traffic signs, like a stop sign, because it grabs the attention. So these colors, your yellows, oranges, and reds, are usually referred to as warm colors. Warm colors, just like a warm fireplace, tend to invigorate. They tend to make us feel energetic. They could be, in some cases, they could be romantic for some. They could be used to create strong, bold contrasts. Now, in some of these, you do have to be careful how much of them you use, because they could be very strong, or they could be sometimes depressing too. So let's say you're wanting to create a mood that's a bit more somber. When you're doing a background, when you're doing a character design, you can use things that are more cool colors. Even when you're picking your shades, you can use shades of colors that usually incorporate like your blues, your purples, your greens. And that can also be used to reflect a different time of day as well. So as it tends to get later in the day, you can pick some of these colors to help create a more somber, darker mood. Maybe it's a little bit overcast. Now, on the contrary, if you wanted to use something that's going to feel a bit more warm, maybe it's during the day, maybe it's a bit more bright, cheery, be sure to include some of the more warmer colors in your palette. Maybe it's like designing an OC or a Sona, and you want them to feel like energetic because you're full of energy, you're excited. You can choose colors that reflect that. The bold, the bright hues. Maybe the pure hues, nothing that would be toned down, nothing that would be tinted or shaded, just like the really bright colors because it matches the personality that you're trying to create. So that's just a basic there of how color can affect. When you go out for walks, or when you look around, maybe it's just right around your home area the next time that you look out the window, look and see the colors around you. Think about how they make you feel. And then you can use that as an inspiration. Now, why are we able to see color? What really happens with color? Well, just as a very simple, when you see color, you're basically seeing light that is reflecting off of a surface, and in most cases you have two things that happen. One of them is you're seeing a pigment or a chemical that's on the surface of an object that is going to absorb other colors of light, because light itself appears white to our eyes until it passes through a prism. Then you see all the different colors in the spectrum. How a pigment works is it absorbs all the other colors of light but reflects only one of them, and that's what we see to our eyes. So when you look at a red apple, it's because there's pigments on the surface of that apple that are basically absorbing all of the other colors in the spectrum except for red. And then that color reflects back to our eyes and we see the apple as red. So then, have you ever noticed though that there are some creatures that when you look at them from one angle, that they tend to reflect one color, but when you turn at another angle, they tend to reflect another color? Now, how does that work? That is referred to as iridescence. Iridescence basically is not determined by a chemical on the surface like a pigment is, but for example, like this beetle over here. How many of you have ever seen one of these before? Or perhaps maybe it's one of these mallards. Or it could also be, let's say, a peacock. Or another famous example would be a morpho butterfly. See, when you look at them from one angle, the color might not be as strong, but when you turn and the light hits from another angle, the color becomes so loud, it becomes so strong, so intense a hue. That property is called iridescence. But how does iridescence work? Well, in most cases, it has to do with the structure on the surface, actually. If you were to zoom in, and I'd encourage you to actually look this up for yourself. When you zoom in on the surface, for example, of a butterfly, the scales on the wings have all these little ridges. And then if you were to zoom in further, you see like something that looks kind of like, picture it like a comb that's standing straight up, and then it has all of these different ridges. So what happens is when light hits that surface, it passes through one, and then part of it reflects. Light hits through the second ridge, reflects, and as it hits through all of these ridges, the color that reflects becomes so much multiplied, whereas all the other colors in the spectrum are canceled out. So you're left with this really intense hue. but the actual surface doesn't have any chemical pigment on it. It's specifically just structure. Now that's amazing, isn't it? So, when you use color the next time, think about these things. What colors do you want to reflect? It can be something that tells a lot about you as a person as well. Whenever you're creating something, whether it's a photo, it could be fursuit, it could be traditional artwork, it could be digital artwork, maybe even you're a writer as well. The same principles apply. When you're describing different hues, the words that you use help to create a visual picture up here and convey the same ideas, the moods, the feelings. They affect that person, and they also can be used to give an insight as to who you are as a person. So, that concludes Color Me Surprised. I'll take some time here to answer any questions that she might have. Also, this has been interpreted as well for those that know ASL, and so wanted to appreciate that as well being done. I'll take some time now to answer any questions that you might have in the chat. My friend here, Ripley Wolf, will be basically my eyes, because right now I can't really see the chat right now, so he will be letting me know about that. Any questions or any comments that you guys have for me, feel free to let me know. And otherwise, thank you for attending Color Me Surprised. I hope that you guys have a radical weekend at BRFF Retro Revive. This has been Seán the Lapaíoighir, and have fun with color.